Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Hello everybody, we're here with another episode of Black and White Market Chatter on Life Planning 101. Matt Ervin and Aaron Kennedy sitting in the Eastland office talking about what's going on in the market. This is our longer episode, Aaron, so we want to take some time to unfold a few things today. And so tell us what you're thinking. Let's start to unpack this.
All right. So, usually when I talk economics, I try to get a bigger picture. I think it's easier if we talk a little bit about extremes, and how things work. I'm not really good at talking to the penny and that kind of thing, but if we can get an idea what's happening from 1,000 foot up or 10,000 foot up, all of this stuff starts to make sense. And we really look at trends and which way the market's going, not at a specific price point of when things will change. I like how you said that. Let's unpack this and see how this should play out.
Well, one thing I want to touch on right here is that so many folks, even the people in the news, get caught up in the what's the unemployment data today, tomorrow, right. And it does not matter. To your point, it's the trends over time, the flows of things and how they correlate one month over the next and the general trend. So I want to just help ease people's minds with it doesn't matter what it looks like today.
Right. I love that. So when we're talking economics, we're talking about what happened yesterday.
Already.
And when we're investing for tomorrow. So try to take what happened yesterday and extrapolate that out, and that's how you get a lot of wrong answers.
Right. Yes. That's why timing the market's impossible.
That's why timing the market is impossible. So first thing I want to talk about is the energy. There's lots of things out there that this is the reason why we're having inflation or this is what's wrong or anything, but the 800-pound gorilla is the price of energy. And just think of how powerful that is. If you want to go to work, what are you using?
Oil, gas.
Oil. What if you buy a gallon of milk? Just the plastic container.
Same.
Oil.
Okay.
Everything getting to the grocery store. Oil. It's so intertwined in all of our economy. High energy costs are going to drive prices higher for everything. So, it doesn't really matter what the Fed does. Doesn't really matter what other areas you really try to fix. This is the first. This is the building block. This is the base of the triangle that we really need to wrap our hands around and get fixed. And guess what, guys? It's not a demand problem. There's not 5 times the amount of airplanes in the sky. There's not 3 times the amount of trucks on the road. We didn't grow into this problem. Business is not booming so much we don't have enough oil to go around. We don't have enough oil in the refineries. We're not pulling enough oil out of the ground. This is a supply problem,
right? Big
time supply problem. And that's going to be the hardest thing to unwind. Because here's the beautiful thing about capitalism. Once we run into supply problems and prices start going up because there's not enough things out there, it brings in competition.
That's right.
And it usually brings in a lot of competition. Everybody wants to make money. Now, of course, there's a lag time with energy. You can't just go up and throw up a refinery in 3 months and be done with it.
Right.
So there is a lag there. But, going back to our big picture statement, high margins, high revenues, it welcomes competition, and that's going to bring more people to the marketplace, to fix supply. So then what's the other side of that coin? Demand. Once we get the supply fixed and everybody's black with oil, we have to be able to use it. Kind of think about retail. There's no TJ Maxx, there's no Ross for oil. So if we have all this extra inventory, we can't just push it down to the next store. That price has to come down until it's used because we store it, right. But that's just a cost.
Well, it's really easy. I heard it explained so well the other day. You know, when you think supply demand curve, it's like I want to create so much demand for my widget, so I had a certain pricing point. And as you increase the price or lower the price, whatever that is, it adjusts the demand for that. Well, with all of the money that was poured into the economy, now everybody's budget changed. Well, based on my new budget, although extremely temporary due to government aid, with my new budget, I can now afford to eat out 3 times a week, or buy my kids new sneakers, or buy that new car, or buy the new laptop. So these companies were not prepared from a quantity standpoint.
Right.
And that's what's driving it. We talk about not enough supply all the time, but when we really extrapolate it to like the things that we touch, iPads, cell phones, anything. We all use something as a device, and so it's easy to help kind of make sense of that. Because oil gets a little complicated, right? Because there's so many things that go in, from pumping it out of the ground, and then how does it get to the refinery, and then, oh, by the way, it's turned into gas, or the milk jug. There's so many. It's such an intricate system.
Yeah, but you nailed it, and I think we really need to talk about this in a few minutes. But that consumer, with all the aid that we received, we have the strongest consumers walking into any recession ever. So it's super confusing that things are like they are, and it's hard to put a label on them. But I think everybody can go outside and look around and say things aren't right. But the consumer's still strong. And it is elevating us above a point that's kind of hard to believe at this time. But it can't really last. It can't last forever.
Right.
And we're probably getting stretched right about now.
With that, let's take a quick break, Aaron. We'll come right back with you here on Black and White Market Chatter on Life Planning 101. We go back for segment number 2 of today's episode of Black and White Market Chatter on Life Planning 101. And we were just talking about how people are starting to feel that stretch, some more than others, right? But it's starting to get a little bit hurtful or harmful to the budget.
Yeah. So let's get back to the consumer. Let's think about all the weird things that took place through COVID. First is the, what's the brokerage? Robinhood.
Yes.
So much money. Vegas is shut down, so people with no means or education to be taking the kind of risk they did were investing like rock stars during this time. Extra money.
They found a way to spend it, didn't they?
Yeah. Think about, I'm probably going to get shot by my son, but what was it, the Xbox or the PlayStation or whatever it is, where people were just buying them off the shelf and then turn around and trying to sell them secondhand?
Yeah.
There's a huge black market for those video game systems and shoes, and people had more money than they knew what to do with, and we're still experiencing that. The money's got to go somewhere, and the consumer has been out of this world strong. But this isn't the first or second month that we've been going through this. We're starting to get pinched a little bit. How long can you go where it costs you $100 a month or a week to fill up your gas? And if it's not 100, so I got a truck, so
I have a car.
Yeah.
My commute's 100. Okay, so that's a fact.
Yeah.
So just think 3 times, because that's about what it is for me. Is about 3 times my fuel costs.
Yeah.
Of what it was.
Even that's what, $1,500, $2,000 extra a year,
right,
for the same thing. And
you've seen food prices and lunch prices and grocery prices.
So I don't know about you, but I've got kids in college now, but we used to spend $300 to $400 a week when I had all my kiddos at home. And oh my God, there's an extra $7,000.
Right.
Thank God I got them kicked out, but that's a lot of extra money. Right. You look at people that are buying homes right now. This is kind of crazy. I heard this stat. The average home size in America now is $450,000.
Wow.
And what's average income? Somewhere around 65. There's a mismatch there, guys.
Yes.
Something's wrong. But anyways, just on an interest rate system, going from 2.8 to the low 5s right now, that's another $7,000. $8,000 a year in interest, not your principal payments, interest. So we've just run off $25,000, $35,000 worth of extra cost. And this is all taking place now.
And this is not extra expenses. This is not discretionary spending. This is core. This is, I got to have a car. I got to have a home. I got to have certain things. I have groceries. These are not things like extra vacations or anything. This is the core stuff.
Right. And I've heard some chatter say, well, maybe your employer can just pay you more. The weird thing is, the employer's going through the same thing. They still have to turn off their lights or turn on their lights, which is 20 to 30% more expensive. They have to get to work. They have to put the fuel in their trucks to drive out. They got to buy the supplies. So where's all this going to come from? And, not from a consumer, but from the whole system itself, we're going to have to start making decisions. What's the most important thing? How do we keep the doors open? How do I keep food in my kid's belly? Boy, be in Europe right now and worry about staying warm this winter.
If they shut the gas off, that's right.
Oh, my gosh.
Right.
There's a whole lot of going on. And yes, the consumer's being strong, but we're getting to the point now we're choosing to go to work and pay that extra fuel cost instead of buying the newest Air Jordans. Maybe I let my iPhone get 2 or 3 models old before I change, because it's just not as important to me as staying warm in the winter.
That's right.
So replacement, substitutes, it's going to get big. And even though we may not feel or visually see the pain right now, it's coming. And it's probably going to go slower than we think at the beginning until it becomes the norm. And then you're going to look around and say, what the heck had just happened?
That's right. It's going to sneak up on you. Well, and it feels different, right? Because the last relatable experience that most people have is in 2020, when it was really a V-shaped recovery. We were talking about the same things. Yeah. Staples are important. Electric companies are important. Those are the things that hold up, relatively speaking, in tougher times. And we were talking about those things, but it was a very short window, and now it could be much longer. And
yeah. And I think we've been beating on this for a long time, but you want to own things that can produce an income. Real estate, utilities, like you said, factories, mines. Those things typically go up with the inflation rate. And I think we have to change our mindset of, hey, we're not trying to hit a home run, Darren, here. We want to survive past inflation.
Right.
No, that came out really, really wrong, but we just want to keep up with our purchasing power. Right. And we need to own things that can do that.
When you said it great, what was it, last week or so, we were on our the market minute, if you will, the short version. He said, it's time to get our list together. It's really time to start looking at our short list of things that we want to own, look for that opportunity, look to jump on it.
Absolutely. And it's pretty neat. The market's pretty broad, and depending on whether you're a growth investor, which means you're buying companies that you think will continue to grow earnings or sales or whatever, or you're a value investor, or you try to pick up companies that are below what you think they're worth.
On sale, right?
On sale.
Yep.
Value investors are buying right now. They're starting to see good values. That's important. These are usually polar opposite ideas. So if somebody's buying, the other one's selling. And right now we're seeing the cheap guys starting to buy. And it's a great mentality to have, because we always want to buy things when they're on sale. And it doesn't just pertain to stocks, it pertains to everything. So if you can have that list ready to go and be looking for things, you're going to do well. You're really going to do well. But it's a different mindset.
Yeah, well, Aaron, let's take our last break right here quick on Black and White Market Chatter on Life Planning 101. We'll be right back with you. Here we are for the third and final segment of Black and White Market Chatter on Life Planning 101. Aaron, we're talking about preparing for the short list and looking for the good things and just being ready here.
Yes. Last thing I wanted to kind of throw out there before we jump into what we kind of see in the cycle is I think the last time one of our political people stood up and they were talking about energy. They said that we need to be driving more towards green energy. I don't think anybody looks out there and says that's not the wave of the future. That's a foregone conclusion. We're going to have
It's inevitable.
green energy, yes. Don't know whether it's going to be solar, wind, hydrogen. It doesn't matter. We're going there. Technology is improving too fast. We're going to get it. But it's not today, guys, and it shouldn't really be part of the conversation. Well, to that big of a degree. Think back to the late 80s and early 90s, the beginning of the cell phones. Remember the bag phones?
Right.
They were ungodly expensive. Service was horrible, and the minutes killed you. It was expensive to use. What if our government came out and said, this is the wave of the future, everybody has to use the cell phones now, the bag phones? What would have happened? Even though it was so clear that's the wave of the future, it would have been devastating. Our communication would have gone to nothing overnight. And it does change, just looking back, I remember having to buy minutes. Just think about the airplanes. Remember, we went from ashtrays to phones on the back of the chair to TVs on the back of the chair, and now you get a plug and you can do everything on your phone.
Right.
Technology advances. We're going to get there, but we have to have an honest conversation of keeping us productive until we can. And right now it's just not viable, and it's a talking point that it's being wasted right now. It's not something that is a solution at all.
Well, it's a political issue because really they're looking at 2030, 2035. You've heard a lot of these car companies come out and say that's their forecast.
Sure.
That's not 2022 today with oil prices at their current form. So to your point, they're not gonna shut the world down and start handing out electric cars. And although they're being encouraged with things so expensive, batteries are expensive, right?
How does the last numbers I saw, California has to produce 30% more electricity to do that? How are they going to do that with all the rolling blackouts? They don't have enough energy to take care of the people right now.
Right.
And they're going to want 30% more with the green energy that
Sunny California. Yeah.
cloudy days won't work.
There you go.
Non-windy days won't work. What are they going to do? We've really got to put our heads around this, because this is the wave of the future, and I'm really excited about all of this, but we can't hurt ourselves trying to get there.
Right.
That's definitely not the most efficient way.
Well, and that should give us some hope, right?
Yes.
Because
we're going to get there, guys.
because oil and gas is not going away for the current form. And
No.
so, but with that, we still got a pricing problem.
Yes, we do. Okay, so that's really it on it. So what are we looking for, and what do we kind of see going forward in the short term? Market-wise, I was having a conversation earlier today. I don't think we're that far off from a turning point, because we are forward-looking. And as soon as people get the idea that we're actually looking for solutions, we'll start pricing it in. And we got a whole lot of elections coming forward in November, big ones, and we're just going to keep going from there depending on what happens. But we're in a point where nothing is really making sense economically or in the market from what the Fed's really trying to do. So looking at it from that standpoint, Fed's going to raise interest rates too much. It's just going to happen. They've come out, they're going to slow demand. Last quarter was our first drop in GDP. So if we have another one this time, that's technically a recession. I've seen numbers of 0.4 growth to 1. And I think we were about -1 last quarter. So, we're right there. And even if we're flat this quarter and down next quarter, I think everybody understands that we're in a recession now. Regardless of your definition, things just are not working well. The Fed is going to drive interest too high, and at some point we need to start putting protection, or let me just put duration on our portfolios. So duration is a risk term for bonds or CDs of how much your portfolio moves with 1% interest rate moves. So, for example, a 20-year Treasury bond has a duration about 20. I think it's like 18 and a half, something like that. Think about this. If I bought a 20-year treasury today and I paid 4%, interest rates go up to 5% tomorrow. Right. Guess what? I'm going to lose 1% a year for the next 20 years. I mean, that is very simplified back of the neck. I just want you all to think about how that works. Right. So my 20-year treasury would drop 20% overnight, or it would have to drop that much so the next person that bought it would make up that interest. So that's with interest rates going up. Interest rates going back down, it's the same thing.
It's teeter-totter, right? It's opposite effect.
If I buy the 4 and interest rates drop to 3, I make 20% tomorrow. So this is good protection because most of the time when the market is burning, everybody gets safe and everybody goes to treasuries. So I think they're running 3.8, 3.6. We talked about that earlier today. Yeah. And, just not too long ago, they were just a shade over 1. So if we get back to where we were, that's about a 45 to 60% growth on those treasuries. Anyways, once we get a handle that the Fed cannot raise interest rates too much, we can't pick the bottom. I have no globe, no
crystal ball.
No crystal ball. But we are going to get to the point where it's going to be very challenging for the Fed to raise interest rates anymore. Probably going to put that protection on, and then if nothing happens, fantastic. I'll make 4.5%, 5% for a little while. But if the market takes a hiccup, that is just wonderful buying power for the future. And we've already got our list of things that we want to be buying. And, we're putting together a plan of when to go back in. And this is an exciting time.
Well, and one of the things you said today, I think it's important to touch on, is you said there's that momentum index, and it is making a shift.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a good indicator to keep in mind. There's no single one to look at. No. It is a combination of multiple, but that is one that we watch to see where is the money flowing.
Right.
Which helps support what we've been talking about. And then we always want to be ahead of that, right?
Right. What Matt's talking about is one of the momentum indexes we look at. Momentum is just buying stocks that have been working, either for 6 months or 12 months or 18 months, just what has been working. During hot times, when things are going gangbusters, you look in there and super aggressive companies that don't have any earnings, but it's a dream. Think Facebook in their
early days.
Yeah. Anyways, that's not the case right now. Right now, it's loaded up with energy and utilities and healthcare. And typically where the market goes, once those momentum indexes are so safe, they're running about 70% of the market, usually that's the turning point. And it's showing up.
Right.
We're not 70% yet because it's got a lot of energy, but it is getting safer and we're out of all those pipe dream companies. So lots of things are changing and we're seeing lots of things. So keep your head up. This is really exciting. We just got to get through it.
We're getting in the starting blocks, staying on our toes. We talked about that
Absolutely.
a lot.
There you go.
Got to stay ready. So
got to put your spikes on.
Got to lace it up. We're in for it. Yes. So that's great. And Aaron, we're actually short on time, so we got to get going for today. But look for us again next week on our shorter version of our weekly podcast, The Market Minute. But for today, that wraps us up. Black and White Market Chatter. Matt Ervin and Aaron Kennedy right here on Life Planning 101.
There you go. God bless.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Don't forget to learn how our sister company can assist you with all of your tax, bookkeeping, and consulting needs. You can find out more at briscoeandassociates.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton and Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton and Associates Incorporated.